Nice, welcome. Listen to those beats. Now I'm kind of hypered up, if you can call it like that, um, because I've been waiting to do this episode for longer than usual. Basically, I wanted to talk about the latest Predator movie, Predator Badlands. And I had this journey, as I often have when I talk about these movies. I had this journey of not necessarily rediscovering, but kind of like discovering all of, well, that's rediscovering, but like discovering extra or new feelings about it. So hear me out. Predator Badlands is the story of this Yautja. How now we know the predators, the race is called Yautja. It's this Yautja that he gets not betrayed, but he gets into a conflict with his family. He's short, he's small, so they want to kill him. So his brother protects him and helps him escape to a planet where he can do his hunt, because these Yautja guys, they do these hunts, right? And if they do the hunts, they show that they deserve to be part of the clan because they're strong. So he goes to this planet and he encounters a synthetic being from Weyland-Yutani, the ones we know from Alien. And both of them get into this weird ass family adventure bonding session, whatever you want to call it, to discover this monster that he wants to kill, which happens to be the same monster Weyland-Yutani wants to acquire, because by now Weyland-Yutani is nothing more but like a bioweapon. They're like Umbrella from Resident Evil. They just want bioweapons for some fucking reason, because we don't really know what they do, what they even do on Earth. Speaking like Alien Earth, right? We don't really know what they do on Earth and why do they want all of these weapons. But whatever. Whichever the case, Predator Badlands is a really fun movie. It's fun, it's surprisingly lighthearted. It has the kind of violence and graphic shock value, if we can say, that we are used to the Predator franchise in general. There are like many interesting lore tidbits and kind of like canonical sprinkle things that we see in Badlands. But the point of the whole movie, it seems that changes as you progress through the movie, and after you start thinking about it, it kind of like grows on your mind in a completely different way. So Trachtenberg, who is the director of Badlands and the previous one, Prey, he seems to be on a journey, on a really strange and unique journey into crafting the Yautja into characters. What do I mean by this? The predators in the original ones, and even in the middle ones, they were just basically slasher assassins. You don't really care about them, you don't really care what they thought, what they believed, what they did. All you cared was that they were unstoppable killers. That was their whole shtick. That was what they did. That was what they were, right? But if the first Predator is like 87 or something, since we've been like 90 2000 like 40 years or something fuck, since the first Predator movie came out, this race of aliens have evolved in ways that we haven't really seen. And I think that is the shock value that Predator Badlands has in particular. It seems that for the first time in the main stage, we're not talking about comics, novel, or those kind of things that barely anyone consumes, let's be honest. Predators are not the interesting subject for an interesting book. You know, we've seen, to me, for the first time in the big stage, the development of a Yautja culture, like as a whole. The fragments of behavior, images, what else? Like speech, the things they say, the things they do, the things they look like. For the first time, they look like a full-grown, independent culture of the Yautja. This is the first time. This is the first time we have a Yautja protagonist. And on paper, that sounds amazing. And on the first viewing of the movie, it sounds amazing. It looks amazing as well. You get sort of absorbed into this character, into seeing a monster that you've known since you were a kid, seeing it as something else, seeing it as a person. And as I said, these things evolve into kind of like a journey that matures and morphs itself inside your brain. Because the first watching of Badlands, you see this and you think this is great. But then, as you keep thinking about it, the more you keep thinking about it, it's not like the less you like the movie, but the more the questions become so overwhelming, strange. During my Spanish episode, of course, I had to remember Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a bona fide classic movie, and to me, it's not perfect as a movie itself. But the more you question what happens in Back to the Future, the more you realize this shit is kind of fucked. You know, the timelines don't align, the logic inside of it don't align. It's a shit show. And more often than not, the answer to those criticisms about Back to the Future is, it's just the fun of it. It's just the fun of it. You just like brush it off, right? It's Marty being funny and everything. And okay, the more you think about Predator Badlands, the less sense it makes how this culture is what it is. You know, we can't erase everything that has happened before. And to me, it's kind of shocking to see Yautja under new eyes, thinking how they've been born and they've been for most of their story just savage hunters. Even back then, it was kind of like a good question to say like, how come they have so much technology? How come they have achieved like faster than light travel? It makes no sense, right? Because they perhaps might have weapons. It makes sense. They're hunters. They have weapons, but the technology is too out there. And if you wonder, like, if what is the name of like Steban or something? Like he has like an American football kind of name, like Jamarcus or something. Jamarcus the Predator, but whatever. They wanted to kill him because he was small. And I'm not gonna say that any grunt and any buff, dumb Predator guy is dumb. Well, I already said they're dumb. But how do we understand technological and cultural development under the light of a monothematic culture? We've been grown to see the Yautja as these people that do one thing. They hunt. They're obsessed with it. It's the base of their culture. But in Badlands, I'm not gonna spoil the movie. Of course, it's too new. But the beginning of it is like a fountain of paradoxes. His brother saved him from, his dad wanted to kill him, as I said, because he's too small. He's an embarrassment for the clan. And the brother gives him a chance to escape and prove himself. You can try to say, okay, no, he wanted him to be a predator, like he wanted to show that he was a real hunter. I don't know. You can try to spin that fact in so many ways to kind of like keep the predator mystique of them being like relentless killers. But it's just love. You know, it's just sibling love. That's just how it is. How can we spin it any other way? And you say, okay, this is not so bad, but the more you think about it, the more it makes no sense for them to be like this. There are plenty of other like issues that are related, for example, to timelines. I'm not even sure how the Predator timeline works, because it seems that the one in Prey is like a savage one. These are newer ones, but the first Predator movies happened in the past, but in that past they had more modern weapons than in this past, like, because these guys do not have as technologically advanced weapons and the one in like Predators or something. You know, it gets confusing. But we're not gonna dwell into the confusing timelines to me, and why the movie started challenging me and started like feel wrong to me was based on culture. My high school teacher, my anthropology high school teacher, used to say, everything you do is culture. Everything you wear, everything you create. And that is such a strange notion to have for the Yautja. We go back to the movie, and of course, the movie itself is so trope heavy in, I don't know, adventure, kind of like the bonding, or the creation of relationships among the characters, whatever. Like, it really is not that original. And the more you kind of like walk away from that like apparent originality, the more you realize that the main original kind of like seed of it is, as I said, the culture of the Yautja. But the point is that if you accept Predator Badlands, the change of paradigm, not only on the Yautja, but like in the whole thing of Predators, it's kind of like apocalyptic. I don't want to be like a, how do you call that, like sensationalism? That's a word, right? But I don't want to just like go the kid that screamed wolf, like this changes everything. But it's true. Like, how can I see a new Predator film and going back to what it was before? Let's think about the outlier movies in the Predator franchise. Mainly, besides this one, it could be Predators, which put a different. Were they all humans? I don't know. But the whole point was they gather predators, quote unquote, from different planets, different cultures, and different species. The bad guy in the end being Topher Grace, because he was a psychopath. That was an interesting kind of like commentary movie, but it wasn't really strong into the Yautja culture. It didn't have that much to do with the Yautja culture. And the other one that could be considered to be, as I said, quote unquote, an outlier in the Predator franchise is Alien vs. Predator. Because in Alien vs. Predator, we are highly hinted to more of the Yautja culture, how they colonize planets, they use the xenomorphs to kind of like conquer those planets, make them into hunting grounds, and have their best go try themselves in that way. Both in that movie and especially in Predator 2, we see this Yautja kind of like, when they beat the bad guys, and the Predators sort of recognize. In 2 is Danny Glover, and in Alien vs. Predator is the girl. They go like, oh, I recognize you as a hunter, and like we can be partners or associates or whatever. Like the lady in Alien vs. Predator gets the mark on her cheek, like a recognition of her skill as a hunter. I don't know. And that's all good and dandy. But they never crossed beyond that. You could still perfectly be the same fucked up culture given those kind of like bonding moments with other species, because even if they recognize those humans after the hunt, that only means that they would come back later and try to hunt them again, right? This is a permanent competition. But that has changed after Badlands. Can we say that the characters in Badlands felt empathy for each other? Can we say they both evolve into something? That is kind of like a tricky kind of like situation to manage, and not only for the Yautja but for the synthetics as well. You see, and as the snowball keeps growing, now we're not only dealing with Predator or Yautja culture, we're also dealing with synthetic evolution. As I've mentioned during my Alien commentaries, I see the Alien franchise having this trifecta of main axes where they often develop. with those being Weyland Yutani, the development of synthetics, and of course the xenomorphs. The synthetics during the whole Alien franchise, they have always been this plot device that often connects one thing with another. It's like, okay, we have this plan, we need someone to betray them. Okay, it's the synthetics. Because in their base code, the very base of every synthetic is allegedly the will of Weyland. That was the obsession with creating the perfect life form. It's embedded in all of them. And even if you have brief moments like in Alien 2 where a synthetic seems to develop some sort of empathy, they have never been the focus of the franchise at all. So we have never really seen any of them, quote unquote, evolving outside of their shells of being synthetics. Because, of course, we all sci-fi fans know that it's an even harder topic to deal with. The rights of synthetics, what it means to have a consciousness, what it means to be an individual. We have so many things implied in an autonomous individual synthetic or an evolving one that it gets crazy. So you get these two big paradigm changes. And the more you think about it, like the movie ended a week ago and you keep thinking about it, and you keep thinking like, as I said, why would I see another Predator movie that doesn't have a Predator person? It's so funny to see how the previous movie from Trachtenberg, Prey, was also a reflection on culture. It was all about culture. Even more so than any other Predator movie before that. That's why Prey is so fun, and that's why Prey is so important, and it feels heavy. It feels like, okay, they have done that a bunch in comics, by the way. That is like a favorite niche of comic creation for these things. And now I think Dynamite Entertainment has the right for Terminator, and well, of course Disney and Marvel has all the 20th Century Fox. They have Predator, they have Alien, but the classic one-shot outlier short story, however you want to call it, from them, it's always, okay, we're gonna meet like a particular culture. We're gonna meet the Native Americans, as in Prey. We're gonna meet the pirates. We're gonna meet, I don't know, pick your poison. But as I said before, and as a lover of comics, they don't do that in movies, because movies, they bring the big bucks, the ones that books or comics are never gonna achieve. So the fact that they chose to highlight Prey, the fact that they chose to highlight a heavily cultured movie, because if anything, Prey is super respectful towards Native Americans and whatever they're showing. And you probably have heard the big criticism like, oh yeah, but they don't speak Navajo or whatever their culture is. Like, yeah, but that's kind of like a detail, right? It's just it was probably just harder to have the whole movie in Navajo or whatever. It's just probably just hard. But anyways, that doesn't erase the fact that it's a movie that is completely made to honor a culture. Even if it has, of course, traces of fantasy and sci-fi, like the whole scorpion Badlands that she wears or whatever. Even if it has all of those things, it's a movie about culture. And they double down in Badlands, in something that I wasn't expecting at all. And part of me think that maybe perhaps they didn't think that it would come out themselves, like the movie. Because as I said, it's really trope heavy, and the plot and development of the story in itself, it's rather generic. It could even be like a Disney movie if you blink enough, two people found in each other under extreme circumstances and creating a bond. So the as I said, the movie ended, and a week later you're still thinking about it, but you're not thinking about the movie, but you're thinking what it means moving forward. And you sort of come into this realization that fuck, there's really no turning back. How can you turn away from this? And I would like say it, and again, I can't go back to another Predator movie in the old school style. And if you think about the flops Predator has had between Predator 2 and this one, Alien vs Predator Requiem, they had that. There's a third Alien vs Predator, right? The one with Keegan Michael Key, or that's Requiem. But anyways, you see all of those flops, they were basically because people were fed up with the format. Unlike Alien, which is a franchise that went to space, and it has always had that fresh sort of feel that the more sci-fi side of it can give you. Unlike that, Predator was always, or like it remained during decades, this niche slasher bullshit. If we think about Alien Romulus, why is it so good? Because even though it's super grounded, even well, they are in space and it's really sci-fi, but it's really grounded on its topics. It always feels fantasy-ish. Predator lost that for years, and now we come back to this groundbreaking world-building movie called Predator Badlands, and I just can't think of anything else that could happen moving forward. You know, at the end of the day, what we see here is I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie, but what we see here is a bunch of characters. You end this movie with I'm tiptoeing around the how you say, like the spoiler territory. But in the end of the movie, what we get here is a group of misfits that have centrally changed what we think about these characters, and by extension of these franchises. Is really unique because we know how these things work. We know that it's really easy to erase what you have done. We have seen it before, especially in the Alien franchise. We have to remember, of course I mentioned it during my Alien commentary, one of my many Alien commentaries, how they tried to craft something new with Prometheus only to erase it with Covenant. We know it's easy. You can easily say that all of these characters that appear in Predator Badlands, they were riding on a starship, and they exploded or something, or like they fell into a black hole. It's super easy to delete what you have done, especially in these franchises. And part of me think that is highly intentional. It's highly intentional. These franchises are not known for, let's say, their lore or their continuity, and it's a risk. And it's a risk to have characters in these franchises, because you know at some point you won't not need them, but you won't be able to access to them. You know, like for example, Sigourney Weaver until this day, she's like, oh, if the project is good, I could replay. I could be Ripley again, or like, I don't know. Remember when there was kind of like just one alien queen? The canon is a mess. Everything is possible. Everything can be broken. Everything can be erased. Everything can be made anew. You know, but I can't help to kind of like see Predator Badlands and not only maybe not expect but hope that these characters and franchises are never going to be the same. But I think that is just well wishing in the end, isn't it? I mean, imagine we don't see ever again a Predator movie that is just a slasher. But at the same time, it's really hard to see them as quote-unquote good guys. It's even kind of triggering throughout Badlands how the Predator character sort of insists on the classic Predator tropes, like, no, you're like, I'm gonna use you, you're a tool, you're a weapon, I only want to kill, I only care about the kill. It's really funny to see it throughout the movie, but at the same time they are juggling empathy for this character. That is one of the funniest things about it, though. Because this is a completely visual commentary, and I find it so fun and so freaky, because they had to make his face into a face. Before Badlands, I've never really noticed how grotesque the Yautja really were. I made this mental comparison between Predator 1 and Badlands. In the classic scene where Dutch goes, "You're one ugly motherfucker," and you see the Yautja in that scene, and the face, his eyes are like demonic. They made their mouths to be monstrous. They're hard to articulate. They're hard to show emotion. And when you see the Yautja in Badlands, it's like day and night. They did so much effort on his face so it could emote different emotions. Like, and you can you can see it. You can see it in how his eyes are bigger and emotive, on how his mouth is tried to kind of like do grins or kind of like frown, and it's so fucking freaky. It's just freaky how it is, and it's freaky thinking back. So all of the other fuckers, like, they didn't have no emotions, you know. But anyways, by now I'm sort of like rambling in the same thing. If I can get a conclusion about it, like a summary, I think Predator Badlands is a super fun movie. It's really trope heavy. Even the violence is kind of like PG coded, but they managed to find this source of fresh content, which is the Yautja and the synthetics being characters, being persons with, let's say it, feelings, and and I don't know what else can you do with being a person besides having feelings. Perhaps having rights. Maybe that's too much to ask. But they really changed the paradigm. And even though it's a fun movie, it sort of leaves you with more questions than answers. And sadly, those questions are inside the context of Hollywood and of big blockbuster franchises. So, in the end, what can we expect of the future? To be honest, I don't know. I don't know where these franchises go. And I sort of like that at the same time that I hate it, because basically that means that anything can happen. For Alien, for Predator, and for all of these 20th Century Fox interstellar or intergalactic creatures, anything can happen. But the fact that anything can happen is not necessarily good. I talked about it during the Alien Earth episode, and in hindsight, you see how they exploited this same kind of like crack in the wall of canon, if you want it, to kind of like do whatever the fuck they wanted. While Predator Badlands changes and challenges canon and preconception of these characters by culture, Alien Earth did so the same, right? By situations, by happening on Earth, by having this past Wayland. Well, no, it's Yutani. It's still not Wayland Yutani during Alien Earth, so that's in the past. It's a mess. I think in the end, what I've discovered is that I was never really into the lore or the canon of these characters. I wasn't. To me, the strength of these characters and these franchises has always been more emotional, philosophical, situational. When I talk about the evolution through Alien 1 through Alien 4 and how Alien was a reflection of society, right? Weyland Yutani has been a reflection of ideologies and philosophies towards speciesism, the perfection of the organic. We have the synthetics, which of course brings up all of the classic, what was his name? Asimovian ideas on AI and technology. And the Predator franchise was the shallow, kind of like ugly, literally ugly motherfucker brother, right? Yeah, we just kill. But now that has changed as well. Now we cannot see the Predators by just these ugly motherfuckers. Now they bring their own input to the table of funny, fancy contents to see in these sci-fi franchises, which is the question of culture. And of course, you can always brush me out, and as many people do, like, yeah, maybe you are overthinking it. The answer to maybe you are overthinking it is always perhaps. As a philosopher, that's the only acceptable answer. You are overthinking it. The question is always perhaps. Because things are not under thought. They are properly thought, and when they are properly thought, they make sense. When things stop making sense, you are on the fringes, right? Either under or overthought. But when it makes sense what you are asking, you don't challenge the reason or the motives behind asking these questions. You know, everything is a challenge, and there's no way you can argue that what they did in Badlands is not an anthropological exercise on culture, both alien, synthetic, and what? Earth as well? But anyways, that is my journey through Predator Badlands. It leaves me in a position of cautious excitement. Just as even though my window is closed, we can hear the sirens outside. Probably they saw a Yautja ship and they are preparing to act. Who knows, man? This movie is great. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And hopefully you are not like me and you don't get haunted by anthropological and philosophical questions for a movie that is arguably shallow. Who knows, man? We'll see each other during the next Predator, or during the next Alien film, or like who knows when during the next Alien Earth season, and we're gonna have the same questions, and they will probably go unanswered, because if you answer these questions, you might kill the Yautja of the golden. Wait, what is the goose of the golden egg? No, the golden egg. No, the Yautja with golden swords. The Yautja, the synthetic with golden spine. Who knows, man? Thank you for listening to another episode. Hopefully you can enjoy some movie. Maybe not this one. Well, yeah, this one. And let me know what you think about it. But until the next time, this is your friend Carlz. I didn't say my thing, right? No, I didn't. This is your friend Carlz. The only conversation that I know that I take whatever I say in Spanish and try to make it make sense in English, which in this case was more emotional and got like from the gut and that I expected it to be. Right? Take care. Bye bye.